The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council fell silent as the 7-foot-tall Malgorian ambassador slammed his fist on the table. The crystal surface cracked under his strength. "This human vessel must be stopped," he roared. "3 of our trading posts are gone, completely destroyed." Around the circular table sat representatives from 17 different alien species. Some had scales, others had multiple eyes, and a few didn't even have solid bodies. They all looked worried. Ambassador Kellner of the Zithians rubbed her blue tentacles together nervously. "The Malgori are not alone. We lost contact with our science station in the Oran sector last week. Our scouts found nothing but floating debris." "It's that ship again," whispered the small, furry Tralaxian delegate. "The human warship they call Defiant." The name sent a chill through the room. Even the temperature-regulating systems couldn't prevent the collective shudder. High Counselor Vex, the oldest member of the council, activated the holographic display in the center of the table. A sleek, dark vessel appeared, rotating slowly in the air. It didn't look like much compared to the massive dreadnoughts of the Vraxian Empire, but every alien in the room knew better. "The U.S. Defiant," said Vex, his voice crackling with age. "A human warship that should not exist according to our treaties with Earth. Yet here it is, cutting through our most advanced defense systems like they were made of paper." The images changed to show the Defiant in battle. It moved with impossible speed, its hull absorbing enemy fire without showing damage. Then it fired back, and entire enemy ships simply disappeared. "5 days ago, it destroyed an entire Vraxian battle group," continued Vex. 15 warships, gone in less than 20 minutes. "Impossible," said the Vraxian representative, his red scales flaring with anger. "Nothing can stand against the might of the Empire." "The recordings do not lie," replied Vex calmly. "This human vessel has done what no other ship has done in 1,000 years. It has made the Vraxian Empire afraid." The council erupted into arguments. Some wanted to send their combined fleets to destroy the Defiant. Others suggested making peace with the humans before it was too late. As they argued, the hologram changed again. This time it showed a woman with short gray hair and a face lined with experience. She wore a simple dark uniform with minimal markings of rank. "Captain Eleanor Wright," said Vex, "former commander of Earth's defense forces during the Third Interstellar War. She was supposed to have retired after the Vraxians destroyed Hope Colony." The image shifted to show a peaceful planet turning into a ball of fire. 6,000 human settlers died that day, including Wright's husband and daughter. 3 months later, the Defiant appeared for the first time. The council fell silent again as they considered this information. "The humans built this ship in secret," said the Zithian ambassador, "using technology they shouldn't have access to." "Not just alien technology," corrected Vex. "Our spies report that much of the Defiant systems are of human design. They've combined our greatest achievements with their own innovations." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Eleanor Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiant, looking out at the stars. The ship hummed softly around her, almost like it was alive. "Captain, we've received new coordinates from Earth Command," said Commander John Harris, her second in command. "They want us to proceed deeper into Vraxian space." Eleanor nodded without turning around. "Tell engineering to prepare the jump drive. We leave in 30 minutes. "The crew is ready," said Harris. "But I should remind you that we'll be facing more resistance the closer we get to their homeworld." Eleanor finally turned, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "They took everything from us, John. From all of us." She looked around at her crew, each face carrying similar stories of loss. "We're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting so that no one else has to go through what we did." As the Defiant prepared to jump to its next destination, stories of its impossible victories spread across the galaxy. With each telling, the legend grew, and with it, the fear of what humans were capable of when pushed too far. The Defiant dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light. The ship's hull gleamed under the distant stars as it moved silently through the empty space. On the bridge, 6 humans worked at their stations. Unlike the uniform crews of alien warships, each person here looked different from the others. They shared only their dark uniforms and the tired look in their eyes. "Status report," Captain Eleanor Wright said as she settled into her command chair. "All systems normal," replied Lieutenant Kyle Martinez from the engineering station. His fingers moved quickly over the glowing controls. The jump drive cooled faster than expected. "We can make another jump in 6 hours instead of 8. Eleanor nodded. Kyle was young, only 26, but he understood the Defiant's experimental systems better than anyone. When the ship was first built, he had helped design the energy core that powered its weapons. "Any sign we were followed?" Eleanor asked. Commander John Harris shook his head. His beard was starting to show gray, much like Eleanor's hair. "Nothing on sensors, but the Vraxians are getting better at hiding their scout ships." "They're learning," Dr. Olivia Green said as she entered the bridge. The ship's medical officer rarely came to the bridge, preferring to stay in her lab. "They're adapting to our tactics." Eleanor turned to look at her crew. These people were more than just officers now. After a year of fighting together, they had become family. "Lieutenant Richards, what's our position?" she asked. Amanda Richards looked up from her navigation console. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight ponytail. "We're at the edge of the Vraxian defense perimeter, Captain. Their nearest outpost should be about 3 light years from here." "Good. And communications?" Specialist Peter Franklin adjusted his headset. "All channels are clear. No chatter about our arrival yet." Eleanor stood up and walked to the main view screen. The stars looked the same here as they did near Earth, but these stars belonged to the enemy. "I know you're all tired," she said quietly. "We've been fighting nonstop for months. But Earth Command wouldn't have sent us this deep into enemy territory without a good reason." John stepped up beside her. "The crew understands, Eleanor. We all volunteered for this mission." Eleanor looked at him. They had served together even before the Defiant, back when humanity thought it had found peace among the stars. "Tell them the truth," Dr. Green said. "They deserve to know." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Our intelligence suggests the Vraxians are building something, a weapon that could reach Earth despite our defense network." The bridge fell silent. Earth was the last stronghold of humanity after the colonies had fallen. "We need to find this weapon and destroy it," Eleanor continued. "That's why we're here, not for revenge, but to make sure humanity survives." "What kind of weapon could threaten Earth from this distance?" Kyle asked, his voice tight with worry. "We don't know exactly," John answered, "but the messages we intercepted mentioned something called the Cleanser." Peter looked up sharply. "Captain, I've been studying Vraxian language patterns. In their oldest dialects, that word doesn't mean cleans, as in clean. It means erase completely." A chill went through the bridge. Everyone knew what that meant. "Get some rest," Eleanor ordered. "We'll reach the first target in 12 hours. I want everyone ready." As the crew went about their duties, Eleanor stayed on the bridge, staring at the stars. The Defiant had never failed a mission. They had destroyed Vraxian ships, bases, and supply lines. They had become the most feared ship in the galaxy. But this time felt different. This time, they weren't just fighting to hurt the enemy. They were fighting to save what remained of home. In her quarters later, Eleanor looked at the only personal item she allowed herself: a small photo of her husband and daughter, smiling on a green hill back on Earth, before the war. Before Hope Colony. "We're going to finish this," she whispered to them, "one way or another." The Defiant moved slowly through an asteroid field, its dark hull blending with the shadows of the floating rocks. Captain Eleanor Wright had ordered minimal power to avoid detection. Only the soft blue glow of essential systems lit the bridge. "Contact, Captain," Lieutenant Amanda Richards whispered, as if the enemy might hear her through space. "Unknown ship type at coordinates 227 by 43. Eleanor leaned forward. "Vraxian." "No, ma'am. The design doesn't match anything in our database." Commander John Harris stood beside the captain's chair, looking at the main screen. Could be a new Vraxian design. I don't think so, said Peter Franklin from Communications. I'm picking up signals, but they're not using any Vraxian frequencies or patterns. This is something new. Eleanor made her decision quickly. Move us closer, but stay hidden. I want to see who else is wandering around Vraxian space. The Defiant glided between two large asteroids and came within visual range of the strange vessel. It was beautiful, a ship made of what looked like crystal, catching and reflecting starlight in rainbow patterns. It's gorgeous, Dr. Green said, having come to the bridge after sensing the tension. Life signs? Eleanor asked. Kyle checked his readings. Yes, but not like anything we've seen before. These beings seem to be partly crystalline themselves. Eleanor nodded. A new species, one they hadn't encountered before. This was supposed to be a stealth mission, but first contact protocols were clear. Open a channel, she ordered. Standard greeting package, all languages. The crew tensed. Opening communications meant revealing their position. Captain, John warned, if they alert the Vraxians. If they're here, they might be enemies of the Vraxians too, Eleanor said. And we need all the allies we can get. Peter sent the message, a simple greeting in multiple languages with basic mathematical sequences to demonstrate intelligence. They waited. Minutes passed. They're responding, Peter said suddenly, visual and audio. The main screen lit up with an image that took their breath away. A being made of what seemed to be living crystal stood in a chamber of similar material. It had a humanoid shape, but with facets and angles instead of curves. Light pulsed within its body in rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Greetings, travelers, the being said in perfect English, its voice musical like chimes in the wind. We are the Sithrai. Your language was easy to decipher from your mathematical sequences. Eleanor stepped forward. I am Captain Eleanor Wright of the Earth vessel Defiant. We come in peace. The crystal being's lights pulsed faster. Peace is a concept we cherish as well. We rarely encounter others in this region who share this value. The Vraxians hunt us for the minerals in our bodies. A shared enemy. Eleanor felt hope rise within her. We too have suffered at their hands, she said. The conversation continued for several minutes as they exchanged basic information. The Zithrai called themselves light shapers and had technology based on crystalline structures rather than metals. Then, without warning, alarms blared across both ships. Vraxian scout ship detected, Amanda shouted. It must have been hiding in the asteroid field like us. On screen, they saw the Zithrai being's lights flash in patterns of distress. They have found us. Our vessel has no weapons. The Vraxian ship, sleek and predatory with its red hull markings, moved toward the crystal vessel, weapons ports opening. Shields up. Move to intercept, Eleanor ordered without hesitation. We're not letting them hurt a potential ally. The Defiant surged forward, placing itself between the Zithrai ship and the approaching Vraxian vessel. They're charging weapons, John reported. So are we, Eleanor said grimly. Prepare the quantum displacement array. The crew froze momentarily. They had only used the QDA 3 times before. Each time, they had watched enemy ships not simply explode, but vanish from existence. Captain, Kyle said quietly, using the QDA this close to the asteroids might. We have no choice, Eleanor cut him off. Target their weapon systems only. Let's show our new friends what humans do to bullies. The Vraxian ship fired first. A red beam of energy lanced out toward the crystal vessel, only to hit the Defiant's shields instead. The Vraxian beam hit the Defiant's shields, causing them to glow bright blue. The ship shook slightly, but held firm. Return fire, Eleanor ordered. Standard weapons only. The Defiant's laser cannons fired, striking the Vraxian ship's forward section. The enemy vessel rolled to avoid further damage, then released a swarm of smaller attack craft. 5 fighters incoming, John reported. They're moving to surround us. Eleanor gripped her chair as the ship rocked from another hit. We can't fight them all with standard weapons while protecting the Zithrai ship. Kyle looked up from his console, his face pale. Captain, the QDA is ready. Eleanor closed her eyes for a brief moment. Every time they used the ship's most powerful weapon, she remembered the warnings from Earth's scientists. The quantum displacement array didn't just destroy matter. It removed it from reality itself. Target the main Vraxian vessel only, she said firmly. Kyle's fingers danced over his controls. QDA locked on target. Fire. The bridge lights dimmed as power flowed to the weapon. For a second, nothing seemed to happen. Then a beam of what looked like liquid darkness shot from the Defiant toward the Vraxian ship. Where it struck, space itself seemed to bend. The enemy vessel didn't explode. Instead, it simply folded inward, as if being sucked into a hole that couldn't possibly exist. A ripple spread across the stars behind it, and then nothing remained except a faint shimmer where the ship had been. Target eliminated, Kyle said quietly. Fighter craft are retreating. On the main screen, the Zithrai being's lights flashed rapidly in what seemed like shock or awe. Your vessel, the crystal alien said, its musical voice now trembling. It wields the power of the Voidmakers. Eleanor frowned. The what? The ancient ones who came before all our civilizations. They created weapons that could erase matter from existence. We believed such technology was lost forever. We hoped it was lost forever. The bridge fell silent. The crew exchanged worried glances. Captain, Peter called out, I'm receiving transmissions from all across this sector. The Vraxians are spreading word about what just happened. They're calling us demons, space demons who eat ships. John couldn't help but let out a short laugh. Well, that's a new one. But Eleanor wasn't amused. The Zithrai recognize our weapon technology. Ask them to share what they know. The crystal being's light patterns changed to a slow, pulsing blue. We would speak with you further, Captain Wright. Our records of the Ancient Ones and their technology are incomplete, but what you possess may be more dangerous than you realize. Permission to dock with their vessel granted, Eleanor said. Dr. Green. Commander Harris, you're with me. The rest of you, stay alert. I doubt those fighters have gone far. As they prepared to board the crystal ship, rumors about the Defiant's mysterious weapon spread through Vraxian space like wildfire. In command centers and on fleet vessels, officers whispered about the human ship that could make matter disappear. On a Vraxian dreadnought many light years away, Grand Admiral Vor watched the sensor logs from the destroyed scout ship. His scaled hands clenched into fists as he recognized the Defiant. Finally, he hissed. His red eyes narrowed, and the spines along his back lifted in aggression. The ship that has been harassing our forces for months. His second-in-command approached cautiously. Admiral, the Emperor demands action. This human vessel has destroyed 15 of our ships now. I know this human, Vor said, zooming in on Captain Wright's image from earlier transmissions. She was at the peace talks before we attacked their colonies. She warned me then that humans would fight back with unexpected strength if pushed. He turned to face his officers. Call in every available ship. The Defiant may have become a legend among our forces, but legends can die. And I will be the one to kill this one. Back on the Defiant, unknown to the crew, a small warning light began blinking on Kyle's engineering console. The QDA's power core was showing signs of instability. Eleanor, John, and Dr. Green stepped onto the crystal ship and gasped. The inside was even more beautiful than the outside. The walls, floor, and ceiling were made of the same crystal material, glowing with soft inner light. It felt like walking inside a rainbow. Their Zithrai host, who called itself Luminar, guided them to a chamber at the center of the ship. Other crystal beings watched them pass, their lights pulsing with curiosity. Few non-crystalline beings have ever boarded a Zithrai vessel, Luminar said. But these are unusual times. In the central chamber, a large crystal sphere floated in the air. When Luminar touched it, images appeared around them, ancient star maps, and drawings of strange machines. The ancients ruled the galaxy 20,000 years ago, Luminar explained. They created wonders beyond our understanding, but their greatest weapons brought their downfall. An image appeared of a device similar to the Defiant's QDA core. They called it the Reality Shaper, Luminar continued. It could remove matter from existence, just as your weapon does, but each use damaged the fabric of space-time itself. Dr. Green stepped forward. Are you saying our weapon is tearing holes in reality? Small ones, perhaps, but they will grow. Luminar's voice chimed with concern. The ancients used these weapons in their final war. Entire star systems disappeared. Space itself became unstable. They destroyed themselves and nearly destroyed the galaxy with them. Eleanor felt cold. Earth scientists had rushed to build the QDA when the Vraxians attacked. Had they overlooked something this serious? We need to warn Earth Command, John said quietly. Before Eleanor could respond, alarms sounded on both ships. Captain, Kyle's voice came through her communicator. Multiple Vraxian signatures detected. At least 50 ships. Eleanor and her team rushed back to the Defiant. From the bridge, they could see the Vraxian fleet emerging from hyperspace, more warships than they had ever encountered before. They must have called for reinforcements after we destroyed their scout, Amanda said, her hands already plotting escape routes. No, Eleanor replied, studying the enemy formation. This was planned. They were waiting for us. The main screen flickered and showed the face of a Vraxian commander. His red scales and the elaborate crest on his head marked him as a high-ranking officer. Captain Wright, he said, showing sharp teeth in what might have been a smile. I am Grand Admiral Vor. We meet again. Eleanor's hands gripped her chair. She remembered him from the failed peace talks years ago. You're a long way from home, Admiral, she said calmly, though her heart raced. As are you, but one of us will not be returning. Vor leaned closer to the screen. Your ship has become quite famous among my people. The Defiant, the ghost ship that cannot be destroyed. My Emperor has ordered me to end your legend. Kyle whispered urgently from his station. Captain, the QDA is still unstable from the last use. We can't fire it again so soon. Eleanor kept her face neutral, not wanting Vor to see her concern. What do you want, Admiral? Surrender now, and your crew will be treated according to war protocols. The Zithray vessel may leave unharmed. Otherwise, both your ships will be destroyed. John moved to Eleanor's side. He's lying. The Vraxians don't take prisoners. Eleanor knew he was right. But 50 against 1. Even the Defiant couldn't win those odds without the QDA. She muted the transmission and turned to her crew. Options. The Azure Nebula is 3 light minutes away, Amanda suggested. Its radiation would hide us from their sensors. The nebula is unstable, Kyle warned. And the jump drive needs 10 minutes to recharge. Eleanor looked at the Zithrai ship beside them. Innocent beings who would die if she made the wrong choice. We need 10 minutes, she said, unmuting the transmission. Admiral Vor, I have a counteroffer. Vor waited, his alien eyes showing interest. Just you and me, Eleanor said. Your flagship against the Defiant. One-on-one combat. If you're so eager to end our legend, come prove yourself. Vor's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. You believe I would fall for such an obvious trap. I believe you want the glory of destroying us yourself, Eleanor replied. Your Emperor would reward the commander who single-handedly defeated the most feared warship in the galaxy. She was gambling everything on Vraxian pride. And the 10 minutes they needed to escape. Grand Admiral Vor stared at Captain Wright through the screen. His scaled face showed no emotion, but the spines along his neck flared slightly. You humans are always so eager to die with honor, he said finally. Very well. My flagship against your Defiant. One-on-one. Eleanor nodded, trying not to show her relief. 10 minutes to prepare. Then we meet in the open space between our fleets. When the transmission ended, the bridge exploded into action. He agreed too easily, John mourned. He must have a trap planned. So do we, Eleanor replied. She turned to Kyle. How's the jump drive? 8 more minutes until full charge, Kyle said, working frantically at his console. But the QDA issue is worse than I thought. The last firing created a microscopic tear in spacetime. It's small now, but it's growing. Dr. Green looked worried. The Zithrai were right. This technology is dangerous. Can you fix it? Eleanor asked. Kyle shook his head. Not without returning to Earth for a complete overhaul. Then we avoid using it again unless absolutely necessary. Eleanor turned to Amanda. Set course for the Azure Nebula, ready to engage as soon as the jump drive is charged. She opened a channel to the Zithrai vessel. Luminar, your ship should leave now. Head in the opposite direction from us. The Vraxians will follow the Defiant. The crystal being's lights pulsed in what seemed like concern. What of you, Captain Wright? There are too many enemy vessels. We've faced bad odds before, Eleanor said with more confidence than she felt. Just make sure your people share what you know about the Ancients' technology with Earth. It might be vital to our survival. As the Zithrai ship began to move away, Vor's flagship approached the Defiant. It was massive, at least 5 times larger than the human vessel, with weapon ports glowing red along its hull. 6 minutes until jump drive is ready, Kyle reported. Shields at maximum, John added, but they won't hold long against that monster. Eleanor stood from her chair. Open fire as soon as they're in range. Target their engines and weapons. We don't need to win. Just keep them busy until we can jump. The space between the ships lit up as the battle began. The Defiant was faster, dancing around the larger Vraxian flagship, like a boxer circling a stronger but slower opponent. But each hit from the enemy's cannons made the Defiant shudder. Shields down to 60%, John called out as the ship rocked from another impact. 4 minutes to jump capability, Kyle said. On the main screen, they could see the rest of the Vraxian fleet holding position. Vor was honoring their agreement, for now. Captain, Peter called from communications. I'm detecting energy buildups in the other Vraxian ships. I think they're preparing to join the fight. Eleanor gritted her teeth. Vor never intended to keep his word. Just then, a massive blast hit the Defiant's port side. Alarms blared across the bridge as crew members were thrown from their stations. Direct hit, Kyle shouted over the noise. Engineering deck is reporting heavy damage. Eleanor helped Amanda back to her feet. Status of the jump drive. Still charging. But that hit caused problems. We need at least 5 more minutes now. 5 minutes they didn't have. Eleanor made a quick decision. New plan. Target the flagship's bridge with everything we've got. She turned to Kyle. And prepare the QDA. Kyle looked up in shock. Captain, if we use it again. I know the risks, Eleanor cut him off. But we have 50 Vraxian warships about to open fire on us. We need a distraction bigger than a nebula. John moved to her side. Eleanor, if the tear in spacetime grows, then we'll deal with that problem after we survive this one, she said firmly. As the crew prepared for her orders, Eleanor stared at the enemy flagship on the screen. She and Vor had unfinished business from years ago, when he had led the attack on Hope Colony. Part of her wanted this fight, wanted him to see exactly why the Defiant had become the most feared ship in the galaxy. But another part remembered the Zithrai's warning about the Ancients destroying themselves with the very same technology. 3 minutes to jump capacity, Kyle said, his voice steady despite the tension. QDA standing by. Eleanor took a deep breath. Target Vor's flagship. Prepare to fire on my mark. The bridge of the Defiant fell silent as Eleanor gave the order. Every crew member knew what using the QDA again might mean. QDA charging, Kyle reported, his voice barely above a whisper. On the main screen, the Vraxian fleet began to move. Their formations spread out, surrounding the Defiant and Vor's flagship. They're breaking the agreement, John said. All ships are moving into attack positions. Eleanor nodded grimly. As expected, the ship shook violently as another blast from Vor's flagship hit them. Shields down to 30%. Amanda called out. We can't take much more of this. QDA at 80% charge, Kyle said. But Captain, the tear is already growing. Using the weapon again cold. 2 minutes to jump drive readiness, Peter interrupted. If we can hold out that long. He never finished his sentence. A massive blast rocked the Defiant, throwing everyone to the floor. Lights flickered across the bridge as power systems struggled to recover. Direct hit to our main power grid, Kyle shouted over the alarms. Jump drive is offline. Eleanor pulled herself up using her chair. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, but she ignored it. Reroute all power to the QDA, she ordered. If we can't run, we fight. John looked at her with concern. Eleanor, think about what the Zithrai said. This weapon could tear apart space itself. We have no choice, Eleanor replied. Then, softer. I'm sorry, John. The main screen flickered back to life, showing Vor's scaled face. He was smiling, an expression that looked unnatural and threatening on his alien features. Your ship is crippled, Captain Wright, he said. Surrender now. Eleanor stood straight, facing him. You said the same thing before you attacked Hope Colony. I didn't believe you then either. Vor's expression changed. You remember. I remember everything, Eleanor said coldly. I remember you promising safety for our colonists. I remember watching your ships burn our homes while children were still inside. War requires sacrifice, Vor replied without emotion. Yes, Eleanor agreed. It does. She turned to Kyle and gave a slight nod. He pressed a sequence of buttons on his console. QDA at full charge, he announced. Targeting flagship. Eleanor took one last look at Vor on the screen. This is for Hope Colony. The Defiant's weapon fired. The beam of darkness struck Vor's flagship. And like before, the massive ship began to fold in on itself, disappearing from reality. But this time, something was different. The distortion didn't fade away. Instead, it grew larger, spreading outward like ripples in water. The tear is expanding. Kyle shouted in alarm. It's becoming unstable. On the screen, they could see Vraxian ships being pulled toward the growing distortion. Some tried to flee, engines glowing as they attempted to escape. Others were caught in the effect, their hulls stretching and twisting before disappearing entirely. What's happening? Eleanor asked, watching in horror. Dr. Green moved to Kyle's console, studying the readings. The tears from our previous uses of the QDA must have weakened the fabric of spacetime in this area. Now it's collapsing. Can we stop it? Eleanor asked. Kyle shook his head. No, but we might be able to escape it. The jump drive is still damaged, but I can get us one short jump. Maybe enough to get clear. Do it, Eleanor ordered. As Kyle worked frantically to prepare the jump drive, Eleanor watched the growing spatial distortion. 15 Vraxian ships had already been consumed. The rest were scattering in panic. The Defiant's legend would grow even more fearsome after this day. Not just a ship that could make enemies disappear, but one that could create holes in space itself. Jump drive patched and ready, Kyle announced. But I can only promise one jump, and not very far. Any distance is better than being caught in that, Eleanor said, pointing to the screen where the distortion continued to grow. Get us out of here. Kyle initiated the jump sequence. The stars around them blurred as the Defiant made a desperate leap away from the disaster they had created. The Defiant limped through space, its hull scared and systems failing. The emergency jump had saved them from the spatial distortion, but at a cost. Half the ship's power grid was offline, and the remaining energy barely kept life support running. On the bridge, the crew worked in dim lighting. Emergency red lamps cast long shadows as they tried to repair what they could. Status report, Eleanor said. Her voice was tired but steady. John checked the main systems console. Engines at 20%. Weapons offline. Communications limited to short range only. The QTA? Eleanor asked, though she already knew the answer. Kyle shook his head. Completely burned out. And good riddance. He looked up at her. Captain, what we created back there, it's still growing. I can detect it even from this distance. Dr. Green stood beside him, looking at the readings. The ancients must have created similar tiers in spacetime. The Zithrai were right. This is how they destroyed themselves. Eleanor closed her eyes briefly. They had survived, but at what cost? Had they unleashed something that would threaten the entire galaxy? Captain, Peter called from communications. I'm picking up a signal. It's faint, but it's definitely Earth frequency. Everyone looked up in surprise. Put it through, Eleanor ordered. Through static and interference, a voice came through. Defiant, this is Earth Command. Do you copy? Repeat, Defiant, do you copy? Eleanor couldn't believe it. This is Captain Wright of the Defiant. We copy, Earth Command. Thank goodness, the voice replied. We've been trying to reach you for days. Your mission is aborted. Return to Earth immediately. John frowned. Aborted? Why? New intelligence, the voice explained. The Vraxian weapon doesn't exist. It was misinformation designed to lure our most powerful ship into a trap. The bridge fell silent as the crew processed this news. All their fighting, all the damage they had caused, for nothing. Earth Command, Eleanor said slowly. We encountered a new species called the Zithrai. They have important information about our QDA technology. It's based on ancient weapons that nearly destroyed the galaxy once before. There was a pause before the response came. We know, Captain. The Zithrai contacted us 3 days ago. Their ship arrived at Earth yesterday. Eleanor felt relief wash over her. At least Luminar and the other crystal beings had made it safely. Captain, the voice continued, something else has happened. The Vraxian Empire has called for peace talks. Peace talks. Eleanor couldn't hide her surprise. Why would they do that after all this time? Reports are coming in from across the galaxy. The spatial anomaly you created has continued to expand. It's consumed 2 Vraxian colony worlds already. Their emperor fears it might reach their homeworld. The crew exchanged shocked glances. They had never intended to create such destruction. Can it be stopped? Eleanor asked. The Zithrai believe it can, with their crystalline technology and what remains of the ancient knowledge. But they need our help, human scientists working alongside them. Eleanor looked around at her exhausted crew. For a year, they had been fighting, becoming the most feared ship in the galaxy. Now, perhaps they could help save it instead. We'll set course for Earth, she said. Though with our damaged engines, it will take time. We're sending rescue ships to your location, Earth Command replied. Just stay alive, Defiant. You've done enough fighting. When the transmission ended, the bridge remained quiet for a long moment. So it's over? Amanda asked finally. The war with the Vraxians. Maybe, Eleanor said. If this peace holds. John moved to stand beside her chair. What happens to the Defiant now? To us? Eleanor looked at the stars through the view screen. Somewhere out there, the tear in spacetime continued to grow, a legacy of their desperate fight for survival. The most feared warship in the galaxy, she said quietly. Maybe now we can become something else. Not destroyers, but healers. As the Defiant drifted through space, waiting for rescue, its legend was already changing. Across the galaxy, stories spread not just of its terrible power, but of how humans had chosen peace when they could have continued the war. And in time, Eleanor hoped, the Defiant would be remembered not for how many ships it had destroyed, but for how many worlds it had saved.